Hello and welcome to the front track attack conversion install video. This install is going to be pretty lengthy, so sit down for this one. On this kit, you're going to get a bunch of parts. Here, we're going to go through them. The first thing we're going to have is a pair of the upper control arms, a pair of these alignment plates, a pair of the upper control arm brackets, a pair of the Viking adjustable coilovers, a pair of the shock mounts, and that's about it when it comes to larger items. Now we're going to go through the nuts and hardware. We got 10 of these 1/2-inch nuts, 8 of these misalignment spacers. We'll have a pair or 2 of the 1/2-inch by 3 bolts, 4 of the 1/2-inch by 3.5-inch bolts, and 4 of the 4-inch bolts. Followed by, after that, we're gonna have 6 of the 3/8 socket head bolts. We'll have 14 of these 1/2-inch washers. We'll have 6 of these 3/8 carriage bolts. We will also have 8 of these 1/2-inch larger washers. Then we're also gonna have 6 of the 3/8 nuts. We'll have 6 of these 3/8 washers, and we'll have 4 of these 1/2-inch spacers. We'll also have 2 of these socket head bolts. You're also going to need a ratchet for this install. You're going to need a 3/4 inch socket, followed by a 9/16 socket, a 3/4 inch wrench, a 1/2-inch drill bit, and a 3/8 Allen key, as well as a 5/16 Allen key. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to install these misalignment spacers into the rod ends or heim joints of the front upper control arm. They'll just slip right in, and that's going to make the install a little bit easier. Next, we're going to go onto the car. We're going to loosen up the bolts that attach to the crossmember using the 9/16 socket and wrench. So these 2 items we're going to reuse. We're going to reuse the 3/8 washer and the 3/8 nuts. We're going to replace the hex head bolt with the carriage bolts that are going to be provided with the track attack conversion. So we're going to take these alignment plates. We're going to slip the carriage bolts through that guy. And then once those are installed, then you're going to attach those to the car chassis like so. Now don't slip them all the way through, because the upper control arm bracket actually will have to go between the chassis and the crossmember. So here we have the upper control arm bracket. We're going to install that to the car, and then behind that is going to be where we slip over the bracket with the carriage bolts. So this isn't the easiest part of the video, and that's why we kind of cut it to save you guys all the struggle, but you can see how I align that in, and then magically, boom. You're going to take the 3/8 washer and the 3/8 nut and tighten that onto the carriage bolts that slip through the chassis and now are underneath the crossmember. And then you're going to tighten those down using the 9/16 socket. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to take the 1/2-inch bolts that are 4 inches long, along with the larger 1/2-inch washer. You're going to slip those washers through the nut, and you're going to have these 2 pre-drilled holes that are on the bracket. Now you're going to take a 1/2-inch drill bit and drill it through the chassis and the frame rails, and then you're going to follow it by the 1/2-inch washer and the 1/2-inch nut through the other side to securely fasten it. We're not going to do it for this video because this is not our car. Next, we're going to install the upper control arm. You'll notice that there is a little bit of gap here, and that's because it allows you to move the control arm misaligned from the top hole and the bottom hole. And to order to make up for that misalignment, we do have washers that we provide with the kit. You have the option of using just the top holes or just the bottom holes, depending on the ride height that you choose. We recommend that we go with the top hole on the front of the car and the back hole on the rear of the car. So that's what we're going to set up the chassis as. We're going to take the 1/2-inch by 3.5-inch bolt, and then a 1/2-inch washer. We're going to put a 1/2-inch washer on the inside of the bracket. We're going to slip one side of the upper control arm into it, slide the bolt through, pull the misalignment spacer back, and then slide another 1/2-inch washer. You might be able to stack 2 in them. Get the 1/2-inch bolt through the bracket on both sides, followed by another 1/2-inch washer and a 1/2-inch nut. Go ahead and hand tight that, and then do the same thing on the other side, but you're not going to use the top hole, you're going to use the bottom hole. The bottom hole is going to allow you to do is going to have a little more control on the ride, and you're not going to have as much squatting or diving when you hit the brakes on the car. So we're going to follow the process the same way. We're going to take the 1/2-inch washer onto the 1/2-inch bolt, slide that through, and then you're going to take another 1/2-inch washer, put it on the inside of that bracket, and then you're going to put up the upper control arm. You're going to slide that through, be able to fit another 1/2" washer on the inside and then the outside, followed by the 1/2" nuts. Then you're going to go ahead and torque both of the front and the back nuts and bolts to 50 foot-pounds. Now we're back at the bench and we're going to install the shock mount to the coilover. Now one thing to note is that inside hole is going to go towards the engine side of the car. It makes it a little bit easier for adjustment having the knobs on the outside. We're going to go ahead and take a 1/2" washer and the 1/2" socket bolt, and we're going to slide that through, fit it with a 1/2" washer on the inside, slide that through the eyelet and back onto the other side of the shock mount, followed by the 1/2" nut. You're going to go ahead and tighten that using the 3/8 Allen key and the 3/4 inch wrench. And now that we're back to the car, you're going to take 3/8 socket head bolts. We're going to slide those through the shock mounts and then through the strut tower on the chassis. Then you're going to follow those bolts with a 3/8 washer and the 3/8 nuts. Then using the 15/16 Allen key and a 9/16 socket, you're going to go ahead and tighten those down to 50 foot-pounds. Next, we're going to install the coilover to the upper control arm. You're going to take the 3.5" long bolt and the 1/2" washer, slide the washer through the bolt and through the upper control arm. You're going to take the 3/8 spacers, you're going to put 2 on each side, you're going to slide that up, and then you're going to follow with another 2 on the other side of the coilover. Then you're going to follow that up with a 1/2" washer and a 1/2" nut, and you're going to tighten those to 30 foot-pounds. So here we're going to take the 3/4 socket, we're going to go ahead and put that onto the ratchet. We're going to remove the cotter pins and the castle nuts from the front upper and front lower control arms. So after you remove the washer and the castle nut off the front upper control arm ball joint, we're going to go ahead and insert the upper control arm into the 370Z front spindle and then reapply the washer and the castle nut. So then using an extension, it makes it really easy. You can go ahead and tighten this guy down to 50 foot-pounds and reinstall the cotter pin. And then using the knuckle bolts, we're going to go ahead and install the spindle to the front knuckle. And then you're going to go ahead and tighten those front knuckle bolts to 85 foot-pounds. The first modification is going to be the brake line bracket. You'll notice on a 240Z, this e-brake bracket clears the upper control arm bracket. However, on the 260 and a 280Z is oftentimes behind, and it either has to be cut off or moved over in order to clear the bracket. The other modification is going to be you're going to have to drill the 2 1/2" holes through the frame rail, and that's going to increase the rigidity on the upper control arm bracket from bending this way. The only other modification that may be required for the Track Attack kit is going to be putting a sway bar spacer underneath it. The sway bar, as you know, will bolt onto this bushing on the front lower control arm. However, depending on ride height and how low you are, there is a tendency to hit on this bracket. If that is the case, adding a sway bar spacer clears this bracket, and it again is really highly dependent on how low of a chassis ride, how low of a ride height you're planning to go with. If you're planning to go with about 3 inches under factory, that will not be the case. And that wraps up the installation of the front Track Attack suspension kit. If you have any questions or concerns, give us a call, send us an email, and drop us a line. Don't forget to like and subscribe.